This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Connor, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Apologies. I live in this very remote place on planet Earth with a very large cellular provider. Just service for whatever reason in Orlando, of all places, just not exactly working. So apologies for this slight delay.
Well, it's all back. You're here, and I brought up before you got on your comparison with 2022 Auburn and 2023 Arkansas. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, so last year Auburn makes the decision Halloween weekend to actually on Halloween fires Brian Harsin, and for the last month of the year, they sort of just became a Power 5 service academy. Their rushing attack was really like it was. Look, they weren't gonna worry about offensive balance or anything like that, like they did with Harsin. They said, what can we actually do well on offense, and what's an offense that we can run? And with Robbie Ashford at quarterback last year, that's just what they did, and they just stuck to their strengths, and it kept them in a lot of games that I don't think they would have been in with Brian Harsin. So that's the comp for Arkansas and what it's doing now, coming off with a Florida game, which finally are able to see this KJ and Rocket combo and have the best rushing game of the entire season with a first-time play caller in Kenny Guiton. And I think that there is a hope now that you can have some sort of an identity, a throwback identity for Arkansas, and one that's going to make them a lot more competitive, a lot more consistent offensively down the stretch here.
Big time win for the Hogs. They needed that, and then conversely for the Florida Gators, they might miss a bowl game. I think this knocks them out. I think they're going to lose the next three. What do the Florida Gators do at the end of the year?
Oh, it's brutal. I mean, look, I don't think Billy Napier gets fired because I think they got 31.8 million reasons not to fire him. But at the same time, that was a costly loss for a program that is entering just a really daunting stretch. You mentioned the three games that they have coming up. I mean, to go on the road to LSU, to go on the road to Mizzou, and then, oh, by the way, you end the season with Florida State that hasn't lost a game in over a year. There's not gimme on that schedule. They're going to be underdogs in all three of those games. And Arkansas, I don't know that it's I think it's doing Arkansas a disservice if we just say, oh, Florida was overlooking them. Like, no, that was maybe the biggest game on their schedule in those Final Four with what was at stake and the ability to clinch a bowl berth and feel like this year was an improvement. And instead, they could be looking at a 5-7 type season after we thought they had turned the corner with that road win at South Carolina. But this conference, it humbles you, and it has certainly humbled Florida.
So Alabama beats LSU 42-28. Jalen Milroe ran all over the place. Georgia comes from behind and beats Missouri in Athens. Our divisions are being led by the teams that always win these divisions right now, Connor, and it seems, well, I mean, you look at who Georgia's got left. Do you see a loss on the roster, on the schedule there? With Alabama, I don't think they're going to lose another game.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I've been saying this for a little while now, I think it's going to be kind of boring in terms of the conference race, that many people are saying, well, we don't know who's good, and Georgia's super vulnerable. Look at all these games that they're struggling to put away early in the season. But we're going to end up with Georgia and Alabama in the SEC championship, and it's now more inevitable than ever after the weekends that those teams had. And Georgia to come back against Mizzou, I guess you can call it that. They were down 3 points in the second half. But against the Mizzou team, I think is really good. And Arkansas fans will see this team in a few weeks and see just the depth that they have at certain spots, especially on the offensive line, that I think is really different. And they have a lot of ways that they can beat you. And there's a reason why they were hanging around in that game. And Brady Cook obviously had two costly turnovers at the end that hurt those chances to be able to pull off an upset in Athens. But Mizzou's a good football team, and I think they're going to be worthy of a top 15 ranking at season's end. And then Alabama being able to have its offense find that identity. That was the key thing they needed to figure out post-Texas. Jalen Milroe gets benched. He has been a much better quarterback in the last month, and he has limited those mistakes. And that's why Alabama is looking like a team that, in my opinion, is going to run the table the rest of the way in conference play. And they'll be sitting at, one loss going into the SEC championship along with an undefeated Georgia team.
Connor, speaking of teams, USC fired their DC. I mean, that was kind of gross what Washington's running back did to him. And with Caleb Williams, and, there's a lot of hype on Caleb Williams. Is he still your number one quarterback in going into I know we have a little bit more time that you're going to have some combine and other things, but is Caleb Williams still that can't-miss quarterback in this next year's draft?
He is, in my opinion. And look, I'm heavily invested as a Bears fan, so I've got a lot of emotional ties to what Caleb Williams has done. And I know everybody's breaking down, post game, he's crying with his family and stuff. Like, I'm not going to fault the college kid for crying. Like, the thing that kind of raised my eyebrows, and I didn't even realize this till after the fact, USC apparently thought it still had a playoff chance, which I'm like, wait a minute, that was your third loss. So in what world was USC going to beat a few top 10 teams and then get into the playoff with 2 losses? That wasn't going to happen. Look, USC is just a reminder that it takes so much more than explosive offenses to be able to win at the high level that we think teams like that with talent should be at. And USC is a team that just cannot get right defensively. And finally, for Lincoln Riley to move on from Alex Grinch after he followed him from Oklahoma, long overdue. I still don't have any faith in Lincoln Riley finding the right defensive coordinator and getting them to a national championship. But, yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, I think he has his issues with accuracy at certain times that makes you frustrated, but he would still be my number one guy. And as a Bears fan, I got my fingers crossed.
What chance you give Ole Miss this weekend? I mean, they just keep winning games, man. I mean, they're the quietest 8-1 team, I think, in the country. And I think that's because people just expect a loss to Georgia, just like you expect that they would lose to Alabama and therefore knock them out of contention in the West and knock them out of contention for the college football playoff. But, man, you really have to admire the job Lane Kiffin's done there, not just this year, but over the course of the time that he's been hired, because that's the second most winningest program, I think, in the division since he's been there. But what chance do they have against Georgia?
I think they have a real chance to make it a 60-minute game. I don't think they have a great chance to win. And I came into this season saying that of everybody that Georgia has on this schedule, this much scrutinized schedule, I thought that Ole Miss was going to give Georgia the best game that it was going to see. Now, at the same time, I had Ole Miss at 6-6. They've already gone way above my projection of them coming into this season. And I think that the issue that I have with this is that, history is just so working against Ole Miss in this matchup. Like, to think Georgia has not lost a home game at night since 2009. I mean, that is crazy to think about. And meanwhile, Lane Kiffin, who I think has been great for Ole Miss and has done some awesome things, and now his 4th year there, the big knock against him is that he can't win the big one. This is somebody that in his entire career as a head coach, he has one win against a Power 5 team that has gone on to win 9 regular season games. And it happened 12 years ago. And that was when he was the coach at USC. So it's been a lifetime ago since he had a quality win. Now, if LSU wins out this year, that'll be win number 2 in that department. But no, I don't think Lane's going to be able to go on the road and beat Kirby with the way that Georgia has found those key moments to be able to dig deep and win some of these close games this year.
Connor, a really big one with playoff implications is Michigan at Penn State this week. What is the latest on the Jim Harbaugh saga going on? And there's not going to be any repercussions on this year for Michigan, is there?
The Tony Petitti conversation is interesting. The Big Ten commissioner, who is apparently getting all sorts of heat from the Big Ten ADs who would like to see action taking place. Pete Thamel's been all over that reporting, I know. And there's real pressure to want to have this ruling come down before Michigan potentially plays for a national championship. Yeah, I mean, for Michigan, it kind of creates this us against the world type scenario, and I don't necessarily think it's going to impact them on the field. I don't have a lot of faith in James Franklin to punch above his weight and beat a team that he shouldn't. So I'm not necessarily predicting a Penn State upset, even though I do think this is Michigan's first real test, first only test that they've had this season. But, yeah, it's going to be awkward moving forward. I mean, there's no way around it. Like, this is going to linger in the NCAA. It's not going to make a fast ruling. It feels like the only way in which we're going to get any sort of action taking place is if that pressure is too much and Tony Petitti decides, even with a conference that has 2 national championships in college football in the 21st century, if he decides that he wants to sabotage one of those opportunities.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.